Alright, so recently I finished up Mortal Kombat 1. So got some gameplay in the background of me checking out some of the DLC characters for the first time. Should note this is very casual gameplay. I'm a very casual fighting game fan. So my opinion on various things is probably different than you may see from a lot of other people. But yeah, this is a game that I'm very conflicted on. I feel like for every good idea or step forward, there's some sort of downside or step back. There were two major selling points for this game, the first of which being the cameo system, and honestly, it was pretty much what I expected. Essentially a rework of something like teammate attacks in something like Marvel vs. Capcom, where you'll summon someone to do one of a few different attacks based on your input. Except now you have characters exclusive to that role, and sometimes too they'll be incorporated into super attacks, or being this is Mortal Kombat, they do get their own fatalities. And I really like the system. It's a creative way of doing things a bit different, and also, especially with a lot of the big fighting game series that have massive casts that are probably going to see some overall cuts. It's a nice way to sort of ease the pain of losing your main, or even a cool way, because I'm sure just about every fighting game character has a fan somewhere. So it could be like a fun way to give the one fan of a super obscure character, toss them a little bone. Maybe see if there's more potential in the character to upgrade to a full-fleshed character. That's actually something I felt like Mortal Kombat 1 did very well in sort of bringing attention and bringing back characters a lot of people may not be too familiar with. Especially characters who originate from the Nether Realm, because I'm someone who sort of didn't play the earlier games when they introduced that. And in the newer games, they pretty much only had Quan Chi. And I don't know, there's some really cool, fun characters that they had just sort of in the background that they were sitting on that I really liked seeing reintroduced. And I, like I said, really like them, hope to see more of them, and hope that they can maybe do this with some other characters they have in the vault too. My main issue with the system is that, I don't know, it almost felt like they weren't fully committed to it, because there's some like odd choices, like how the second season pass had absolutely no new cameos, and then in the story mode, Liu Kang, I know, is one example who you saw there was a couple characters that overlapped between the two rosters, but Liu Kang appears as a cameo in the story mode, yet he's not selectable in any other mode. In that role, I don't know, it just seems very odd. You wonder why that's the case, or why they couldn't have even worked out a majority of the roster, repurpose an attack or two to, fulfill a cameo role. The other major selling point for this game was the story reboot, where we see Liu Kang attempt to rebuild the timeline so that hopefully most people have a better future. And I've probably only got one complaint for the first 2/3 or 3/4 of the story, being they should have just really dropped some of the comic relief moments they were trying to have. They just weren't doing them very well. It was just kind of out of place and cringy. But then, spoiler alert for the end of Mortal Kombat 1's story, but they sort of introduced this concept of, and I don't know if this is something they introduced more in Mortal Kombat 11's, story expansion, but basically there's other timelines where other characters defeated Chronica and control their world's rebuild. And I think it's a general decent idea with some potential, but it felt like too much too quick. I kind of wish it was like a end of story reveal, and maybe you drip feed it a little more in the next game or two before you really dive all the way in with that concept, because I liked seeing the world Liu Kang built and seeing him have the challenge to try to preserve it and the sort of different circumstances he set up for different things. Reminds me a lot of Mortal Kombat 11, actually, because I kind of liked the concept and potential in the vengeful Raiden thing. But that was an overall factor even shorter before they got into multiversal time travel shenanigans. And I don't know, at least in Mortal Kombat 1, when they took that route, the story was still passable till the end, I think. It wasn't really until the Chaos Reigns expansion that they really began butchering it. Like, it was just not interesting, fun, or cool in the slightest. I feel like Chaos Reigns in general, too. Like in the previous trilogy, there was a big focus on Sonya, Jax, and Kano. So there was a bit of a militarized tone, especially with some of the fight scenes. But I kind of liked, I felt like in the base game story, you saw more one-on-one, hand-to-hand combat, which I felt like fit better and was more fun to watch. But I feel like even though they didn't, go all right army with it, it's still, once they introduced the multiversal thing, or I'm sorry, the multi-timeline, it kind of got a more mass battle as opposed to the one-on-one combat that I was liking more. And I don't know, especially with Chaos Reigns, I wish they dived deeper into the background of the characters from other dimensions. Why is everyone just unquestionably devoted to Havoc? I mean, I guess you can say because he controls the timeline, but I don't know. I feel like they could have gotten a more interesting approach with that and given the people in these other timelines a little more free will, kind of like what Liu Kang did by default. And yikes, the pacing too, I felt like was generally bad with Chaos Reigns. Like, since the previous trilogy, Mortal Kombat's actually had a pretty good story structure where you fight 4 battles with a character and the story progresses a little bit in between each one. And I feel like in base game, like I'll just use an example, I feel like in the main campaign, Sub-Zero would need to fight Raiden and Kung Lao, and then the story would advance and you'd be fighting, a different set of characters next time. Where instead, in Chaos Reigns, Sub-Zero would first fight Raiden with a Kung Lao cameo, and then he would fight Kung Lao with a Raiden cameo without, story progression in between, and it just sort of artificially inflates the length of the campaign, and it doesn't help if you're not a fan of any of the characters you're playing as. The only character who had a chapter that I generally like playing as in Chaos Reigns was Rain, so it just dragged on. I felt his story was kind of confusing too. Like, was the Rain from Havoc's world rebelling, or did Havoc invade and conquer Rain's world? And why are we even doing shit like this to begin with when you were already going a good direction? A few other noteworthy things from the game, though. You may have noticed with the gameplay, but stage hazards are gone. I guess Kameos kind of replaced them, which, I mean, I don't know if I would rather one or the other, but I don't get why we can't have both. I felt like the stage hazards really helped set Mortal Kombat apart from the competition. It helped sort of make stage selection feel a bit more important, and it's just kind of a shame it's gone. Although, like I said, I do like the cameo system that came in. Another replacement, though, was the crypt being replaced by invasions, and it reminds me quite a bit of the World of Light situation from Smash, to where in general they found a way to add more variety to the core gameplay at the expense of adding variety to the product as a whole, if that makes any sense. Like, we used to have a whole entire mode to just sort of take a break with in between some matches and that, and I really liked having that. But I do like some of the fun, unique ways they spice up the core gameplay with invasions. The part where they really messed up, though, for me, was I didn't realize, like, the whole thing was, like, seasonal content. Like, there was, I don't know, 6 to 8 maps, and I thought only one of them was a seasonal rotating situation, but turns out pretty much all of them were, which yeah, the situation wound up being I was having fun. I thought I had a few more maps to go through, so I bought the season pass because I thought I would be playing, the core stuff a bit more and, would add a little more variety, a little more fun to have an extra set of characters. So I waited for the DLC to go on sale, and by that time the season ended and all my progress had been cleared. So yeah, I feel double ripped off with the Chaos Reigns bundle because the campaign was horrible, and then I didn't even get to use it for the purpose I was planning to. Although I guess that's partially on me for maybe not doing enough research. But yeah, I don't fuck around with that. Why am I playing through invasion maps if they're just going to take away my progress at a certain time frame anyway? Just seems like a kind of pointless waste of time to me. Something else that felt real shitty with the game and its DLC was that there were so many characters who appeared, and one that you played as being Shang Tsung, but I'm pretty sure you had battles against Ermac, Quan Chi, in at least cameo roles, and some of the cameos like Chameleon also appeared, which I guess is a little more forgivable if they want to tease a little DLC in the campaign, but it feels really scummy, like they're taking away content and locking it behind a paywall if the character is already pretty much functional in the core gameplay, or at least as a cameo, which, like I said, was the case for at least 3 characters. Like, I don't know, maybe you expect 1 pre-order bundle and whatnot, but I feel like 3, a little much for that. I don't remember if this is new, but in the corners on the bottom, those are kind of like super meters. I think if you have 3, you can have your cameo, break a combo, or if you see me on the pause screen sometimes, I'm looking up what some of the combos are to try them out. But if you press, in my case, RT, but whatever the input is at the end of the command, you will eat a bar of that meter, but be able to do a more powerful version of that attack. But at the same time, like, sometimes it's pretty noticeable the attack will maybe change a little in aesthetic, or there will be, an extra part to it. But I don't feel like that was always the case. And you would still eat a meter, but it was kind of hard to remember, I guess, what combos actually are useful with the meter, let alone what all your combos are. Even some of the cameos, I don't really know how Tremor's gimmick works. I see him switching back and forth between different forms, and I noticed Farah, I think her name is, because it was Farah Tor, and you sort of act like Tor, and she sort of serves the role she did in Mortal Kombat X. And I know Chameleon will be timed between different mimicked attacks. Like I said, it's stuff like that I really liked seeing with the cameo system. A lot of that, I guess, was DLC, though. I don't know. Overall, I still had a fun time. This was the second of the sort of new generation of the big three fighters that I've played. I still need to get... Well, I bought it, but I haven't played Street Fighter 6 yet. And I don't know, I just hope next time they're able to stick the landing more. Because there's a lot of potential and good ideas, but like I said at the very beginning, there's several mess-ups too.